wake on the floor, a damp cloth still clutched in my hand. The scent of lemon polish hangs heavy. My wrist aches, the old scar a dull throb beneath my sleeve. I was cleaning the baseboards, I remember now. The living room is quiet, too quiet. The old grandfather clock in the corner usually ticks, a steady, comforting rhythm. Today, it's silent. The shadows, usually sharp against the wall, seem to ripple. Not like light playing tricks, but like something behind them is moving. My dog, Buster, a scruffy terrier mix, nudges my hand, then trots towards the couch. He loves to chase dust bunnies back there. He slips behind the old velvet cushions, a quick, familiar movement. I wait for him to reappear on the other side, as he always does. But he doesn't. The space behind the couch is against a solid wall. There is no other side. I didn't move. I just watched the empty space. My brass key feels cold in my pocket. I picked up the damp cloth again. The silence in the living room was heavy, pressing down. I tried to focus on the baseboards, but my hands felt clumsy. The grandfather clock remained still, its hands frozen at an impossible time. A faint creak echoed from the hallway, though I knew all the doors were shut tight. The overhead light flickered, just once, then held steady, but the brief darkness left a cold spot in my vision. I reached for the lemon polish, but it wasn't where I'd left it. It sat on the mantelpiece across the room. I hadn't put it there. A shiver ran down my spine. I felt watched, a pressure on the back of my neck. My brass key felt heavy in my pocket, a small comfort. Just then, Martha, from accounting, walked into the living room. Her eyes were wide, rolled back, and a fixed smile stretched her lips. Her voice was flat, distant. The path you choose is the path you are given. Do not deviate. She blinked. The smile vanished, and she looked confused. Oh, TVERO, still cleaning? I just needed to grab a file. She turned and walked out, leaving the scent of ozone. The ozone smell lingered, a sharp contrast to the lemon polish. Martha's words echoed, flat and unsettling. The path you choose is the path you are given. Do not deviate. I picked up the damp cloth again, my wrist aching where the old scar pulsed. The grandfather clock's glass face reflected the room, distorted and dark. As I moved past it, a flicker caught my eye. Not my own reflection, but something else. A tall, thin shadow stretching impossibly from the corner of the room, reaching towards the clock. It was gone as quickly as it appeared. I stopped. My breath held. Just tired, I told myself. My eyes were playing tricks. I turned back to the clock, examining the glass. The surface was now smudged, a faint, elongated print marring the polished wood frame beside it. It was too high for my hand, too thin to be Martha's. My brass key felt cold and heavy in my pocket, a small anchor in the growing strangeness. I didn't move. I just stared at the mark. I stared at the smudged print on the clock frame, my mind trying to make sense of it. It was too high, too thin. A sudden, sharp crack echoed from behind the couch, making me jump. It sounded like old wood splitting. Then the grandfather clock, which had been silent for hours, let out a low, guttural groan. The sound vibrated through the floorboards, a deep, resonant hum that felt wrong. I watched, frozen, as the heavy velvet couch slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to slide away from the wall. It scraped against the polished wood floor, a harsh, grating sound that set my teeth on edge. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't the house settling. This wasn't just my eyes playing tricks. The air grew cold, a sudden chill that raised goosebumps on my arms. My brass key felt like a block of ice in my pocket, pressing against my leg. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just old furniture. But the words felt hollow even in my own head. The scraping continued, slow and deliberate. The couch continued its slow, grinding journey, pulling further from the wall. The gap widened, revealing not plaster, but a deeper, shifting darkness. It wasn't just shadow. It was a void that pulsed, like a bruise on reality. Within it, something moved. Not a shape I could name, but a presence. It was too tall, too thin, stretching impossibly from the floor to the ceiling. Its edges blurred, like heat haze, but I could feel its cold. A faint, sickly sweet scent, like old flowers and dust, filled the air. My breath hitched. I saw a flicker, a brief, impossible glimpse of something like a limb, too many joints, too long, retracting into the shifting black. It left a smear on the newly exposed wall, a dark viscous trail that glistened faintly. My wrist throbbed, the old scar burning. The brass key in my pocket felt like a lead weight, heavy and cold, a small anchor in a world that was coming undone. I didn't move. I just watched the smear, the impossible mark. I needed to move. My legs felt heavy, rooted to the spot, but the instinct to flee was a cold spike in my chest. I took a single, hesitant step backward, my eyes fixed on the shifting void behind the couch. The air grew colder, the sickly sweet scent intensifying, pressing in on me. As my foot lifted, the couch shuddered, grinding another inch forward, blocking the doorway to the hall. It wasn't just moving, it was positioning itself. A low guttural sound, like stones shifting deep underground, vibrated through the floorboards. I spun, looking for another exit, my gaze darting to the window. But the glass, usually clear, was now opaque, coated in a thin, dark film that seemed to pulse with the same impossible darkness. My wrist burned, the old scar a frantic pulse against my skin. The brass key in my pocket felt impossibly hot now, a useless weight. There was nowhere to go. It was waiting. The guttural sound intensified. It wasn't just vibrating the floorboards anymore. It was a pressure. I felt it pushing against my chest. The air grew heavy. It was thick with that cloying sweetness. I could feel it in my lungs. The couch groaned again. It scraped further across the floor. It sealed the last gap to the hall. A new sound joined the low rumble. It was a wet, dragging noise. It came from under the couch. Something was moving out. Not Buster. Never Buster. A dark, slick mass began to ooze from beneath the velvet. It spread slowly onto the polished wood. It was formless, yet it seemed to reach. A tendril of shadow, impossibly dense, snaked out. It touched the toe of my shoe. It was cold, so cold it burned. My breath hitched. I couldn't move. My wrist throbbed. It was a frantic drumbeat against the searing cold. The brass key felt like a brand in my pocket. It was useless against this. The window pulsed. It mirrored the darkness that now clung to my foot. I was trapped. The cold spread. It wasn't just my foot now. It was in the air, a creeping chill that settled deep in my bones. My vision blurred at the edges, the familiar room twisting into something alien. The shadows on the wall seemed to writhe, not just from the pulsing window, but with an internal life. Every creak of the house, every distant hum, became a threat. I felt eyes on me, countless unseen eyes, pressing down from the ceiling, from the corners of the room, from the very walls themselves. My breath hitched. shallow and ragged. The cloying sweetness in the air intensified, making my head spin. I could almost taste the fear, metallic and sharp, on my tongue. My wrist throbbed, a constant, painful reminder of other impossible things. The brass key, still clutched in my pocket, offered no comfort. It felt like a dead weight, a useless charm against this pervasive dread. I knew, with a chilling certainty, that this wasn't just a physical threat. It was something that burrowed into the mind, twisting reality until escape felt impossible. The silence of the grandfather clock screamed louder than any sound. The crushing weight lifted. The pervasive cold retreated, pulling back from my bones, leaving only a faint chill in the air. The unseen eyes, which had pressed down from every surface, seemed to blink away, releasing their suffocating grip. My vision cleared, the room no longer twisting, but settling back into its familiar, if unsettling, stillness. The cloying sweetness in the air faded, replaced by the faint, lingering scent of lemon polish. I took a deep, shuddering breath, the metallic taste of fear slowly dissolving from my tongue. My wrist still ached, the old scar a dull throb, a constant reminder. The grandfather clock in the corner remained silent, a stark, gaping hole in the room's expected rhythm. I touched the brass key in my pocket, its cold weight a small, familiar anchor. This wasn't an end, it was just a pause. The reality had twisted, and it would twist again. The quiet settled around me, but it wasn't peace. It was just the space between the entity's breaths, a temporary lull. The grandfather clock still stood silent in the corner, a monument to missing time, its hands frozen at an impossible hour. My wrist throbbed, a dull, constant reminder of the scar beneath my sleeve, a physical record of what had been. I looked at the couch, at the solid wall behind it. Buster was gone. He wouldn't come back from that impossible stace. This wasn't an ending. I knew that now with a chilling certainty. It was a rhythm, a pulse. The world would twist, then it would settle. Then it would twist again. The crushing weight would return. The unseen eyes would press down. I would feel the cold, taste the fear. It was a cycle, predictable in its horror, inescapable. I ran my thumb over the cold brass key in my pocket, its weight a small, familiar anchor in the shifting reality. Everything else was just waiting for the next shift. I was just waiting.